The dining room of the Bennett family estate had never known such stillness. Usually alive with laughter and over-polished niceties, it now sat frozen, like a stage abandoned before the performance could begin. My father's voice cracked through the phone, stripped of his usual booming confidence. The food never came, he said, disbelief strangling every word. 20 relatives sat in silence around a linen-draped table, their forks idle over empty plates. The golden centerpiece glinted like a joke no one wanted to explain. And I was 300 miles away, curled up in my apartment in Asheville, sipping apple cider in fuzzy socks and relishing a silence that felt earned. "Oh," I replied smoothly, "I assumed you didn't need anything from me." It was a deliberate echo of the words they'd used on me just a week earlier. But in that moment, those words finally carried weight. A long, clumsy silence followed, then the muffled sounds of commotion, someone muttering, voices rising in confusion. I recognized my mother's sharp tone, floating through the receiver like steam from a boiling pot. "What does she mean by that?" she demanded in the background. What I meant was simple. They had disinvited me, and they had still used me. I'm Claire Bennett. I'm 38, the firstborn, the fixer, the unthanked family glue. For years, I was the one who booked travel for our cousins, the one who listened when someone's marriage was on the rocks, and the one who picked up bills like they were party favors. Thanksgiving in our family was never about love. It was a high-gloss illusion, curated, spotless, emotionally expensive. Everyone played their part. My part? Keep the engine running. Growing up in Raleigh, I wasn't a daughter. I was backup staff. My younger siblings were adored. I was responsible. I thought moving out for college would change things. That becoming a self-sufficient adult would finally earn me my seat at the table. I was wrong. It unraveled quietly a week before Thanksgiving 2024. My Aunt Linda had sent out a cheery message in the family group chat. "Can't wait to see everyone Thursday." I'd replied, "As usual. Same here, looking forward to it." Hours passed. Then a private message popped up from my cousin Sophie. "Wait, are you actually coming? Your parents told everyone you weren't invited this year." I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. I called my mom, Margaret, in disbelief. She danced around the question at first, then finally admitted, "We're just keeping it small this year. Immediate family only." I blinked. I am immediate family. It's just less tension this way. Tension? From me? Unless she meant that time I said no to paying for Ryan's car repair, or when I refused to cover the shortfall on Danielle's wedding. I'd started setting boundaries. That, apparently, made me inconvenient. Still, I checked. Everyone else had been invited, siblings, their spouses, even distant cousins from Charlotte. Everyone but me. But they'd kept one thing intact, my credit card. I had covered the entire catering bill for the Thanksgiving meal. Not just a chip in. I had paid for the turkey, the sides, the desserts. I'd personally placed the orders at Maple and Hearth Butcher, my mother's favorite. The desserts came from Sweet Laurel Bakery, her holy grail of pumpkin cheesecake. All of it had been ordered under my name. They didn't just forget me. They erased me, while still eating at my expense. So, I made 2 phone calls. One to the butcher, the other to the bakery. Both issued refunds once I forwarded the receipts. The butcher was swift and almost apologetic. The bakery took some convincing. Then I waited. Thanksgiving Day, 12:17 p.m. My phone rang. Dad's name lit up the screen. I let it buzz 4 times before answering. "The food never came," he said, voice tight with panic and confusion. I could hear voices in the background, whispers rising, questions cutting through the silence. "Maybe check with whoever placed the order?" I offered lightly. "You placed the order," he snapped. I let the silence stretch. Then I said it again, softly. "Oh, I didn't think you needed anything from me." He didn't respond. An hour later, Sophie texted me. "No turkey, no desserts, nothing. Stores are closed. Everyone's panicking. Danielle brought her new boyfriend. She's crying in the bathroom. Your mom locked herself in the guest room. Your dad looks like someone ran over his bourbon glass." Uninviting me had come with a price. Not one I charged, but one I stopped discounting. 3 days after the Thanksgiving disaster, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom in the family group chat. "We really missed you at Thanksgiving. Hope we can put this behind us." No apology, no ownership, just a carefully wrapped attempt to sweep everything under the rug, the way she always had. To her, every conflict was a speck to be dusted away, not something to be faced or fixed. I didn't reply. Then Aunt Linda called. "Claire," she said gently, "a few of us, we talked to your parents. They needed to hear it. What they did, it wasn't right." Her voice was warm, cautious, like she was holding something fragile. I appreciated it, but the damage had already rippled far beyond a missed dinner. Mom didn't like being called out. And true to form, by the end of the week, a new version of the story began making the rounds. In this new script, I had become the villain. Apparently, I had suffered a breakdown. I had sabotaged Thanksgiving. I was unstable and dramatic. Convenient words, the kind that gave others permission to look away from the truth. Dad called twice before I answered. When I finally picked up, his tone was clipped, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. "I don't know what you were trying to prove," he said, "but you embarrassed your mother." I laughed. Sharp, bitter, funny. I thought she didn't even want me there. He sighed theatrically. "We made a mistake, okay? But what you did was low. Lower than uninviting your daughter after she paid for the meal?" His silence was telling. "You should have said something," he muttered. "You're being dramatic," he added, like it was a spell to undo everything. My blood pulsed in my ears. "If it's not a big deal," I snapped, "then why are you still calling me about it?" And I hung up. I was shaking, not just from anger, but from something deeper, a heartbreak I'd never fully allowed myself to acknowledge. The kind that comes from realizing the people you needed most never truly saw you as essential, only useful. That night, my cousin Sophie messaged me again. "You officially started a war," she wrote, followed by a winky face. I stared at the screen. "Apparently, your mom is telling everyone you've always been difficult, and that this just proves it." Of course, this wasn't about hurt. This was about control. Christmas was on the horizon like a looming cloud, something heavy that people pretended was cheerful. I had no intention of going. Not until Aunt Linda called again. "Claire," she said carefully, "your mom's telling everyone that you're skipping Christmas because you can't handle conflict. She's painting you as fragile. Your dad's saying he tried to fix things but you're being stubborn." I gripped the phone tight. "Oh no," I said, "they don't get to rewrite my story." Christmas Eve, 2024. I arrived late on purpose. The Asheville air was cold and clean, a sharp contrast to the tension I could already feel pulsing behind their front door. As I stepped inside, every conversation in the room seemed to die at once, like someone had scratched a needle across a vinyl record. My mother's expression went blank. Dad froze, bourbon in hand. Danielle blinked as if she were seeing a ghost. "Hey," I said casually, slipping off my scarf. "Merry Christmas." My mom found her voice. "Oh, you made it." "Of course," I replied sweetly. "Wouldn't miss it." Then I stepped aside and revealed my guest. Grandma Helen, my mother's estranged mother, the woman she'd tried to erase from our family history. My grandmother had been appalled when I told her about Thanksgiving, and when I asked if she wanted to come to Christmas dinner. She didn't hesitate. "Oh my," Grandma said, stepping into the house with theatrical wonder. "It's been ages since I've been here. What lovely decorations. Dear." My mother's face lost all color. She looked like she might faint. Dinner was a silent war zone. At one point, Grandma picked up her fork, examined the stuffing, and chirped, "Is this store-bought? Tastes very consistent." I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Over the next week, my phone buzzed with mixed messages. "Heard there was some misunderstanding. You okay? Didn't think you had it in you to be that cruel." Then Aunt Linda called again. "Your mom's telling people you had some kind of breakdown. That what you did at Christmas proved it." I let out a humorless laugh. Not shocked, just exhausted. The truth? My mother wasn't just embarrassed. She was threatened. I had exposed her carefully maintained illusion, and now she was rewriting the narrative to make me look unstable. If she could discredit me, she wouldn't have to face what she did. I called Grandma Helen. Unfortunately, she said with a sigh. Your mother's been calling around, saying she's worried about you. That you're not well. You know that's not true, right? My dear, she said firmly. I knew it wasn't true before she even opened her mouth. That night, sitting alone with only the warm glow of my Christmas tree, I typed out a message in the family group chat. Hey everyone, just wanted to clear up any confusion. I'm doing great. No breakdowns. No drama. It's been an interesting holiday season. But I'm genuinely in a good place. Hope you all are too. Wishing everyone a happy new year. It was short, calm, neutral, impossible to twist. The digital equivalent of smiling and waving while someone else's lies turned to ash. But then, something unexpected happened. Ryan, my brother, texted. Hey, can we talk? We hadn't spoken in months. I called him right away. My heart thudded in my chest. I don't agree with what Mom did, he said. I blinked. You don't? She's really good at twisting things, he admitted. Thanksgiving felt off, but Christmas, that's when it clicked. He paused. I didn't say anything because, well, you know how she gets. Yeah, I said gently. I know. I'm not saying I handled it right, he continued, but I don't think you're crazy. Not even close. My throat tightened. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. Over the next 2 weeks, things began to shift. First Aunt Linda, then Grandma, now Ryan. The stories were cracking. My mother's grip was loosening. Then came the final call 2 weeks into January. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first, but something told me not to ignore it. I picked up. We need to talk, my mother said. No hello, no warmth. About what? A pause. Then, with that icy tone she always used when she didn't want to show emotion. Your little stunt humiliated me. There it was. Not hurt me. Not let's talk about what happened. Just, you embarrassed me. Still about appearances. Still about her. Sunday dinner. 6 o'clock. She said curtly. Your father and I expect you here. And then she hung up. I nearly deleted the event from my mind. But then Aunt Linda called, again. Like she had a sixth sense about the emotional hurricanes my mother stirred up. Just hear them out, she said. You don't have to forgive them. But make them say it to your face. So, I agreed. Not for them, but for me. Sunday evening arrived like a thundercloud. As I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, the sky was gray, the air cold and heavy. I stepped out of the car and braced myself, like I was walking into court instead of dinner. The moment I stepped through the front door, the tension was almost physical. My dad, James, stood stiffly at the far end of the dining room, hands clasped too tightly in front of him. My mom, Margaret, sat at the head of the table like a judge, arms crossed, eyes like knives. Danielle, my sister, pretended to scroll on her phone, visibly uncomfortable. Ryan sat on the edge of his seat, glancing between all of us nervously. The table was already set, perfectly. As always, silver polished, napkins folded into swans, the illusion of normalcy, layered over rotting truth. Do you have any idea what you've done? My mother demanded, exhaling sharply. I tilted my head, refusing to flinch. Which part are you mad about? Canceling the turkey? Bringing Grandma to Christmas? Or the fact that people stopped believing your version of the story? You're so dramatic, she snapped. Dad cut in, trying to play the peacemaker. Your mother's hurt, Claire, and you've done nothing but make her look bad. She made herself look bad. I replied calmly. I just stopped covering for her. My mother's face turned red. The truth? She hissed. You mean your version of events? Because in my version, you abandoned your family. You refused to let go of the past. You took revenge over a simple misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I repeated. The word cracked through the air. You didn't invite me. You let me pay for the entire Thanksgiving meal. And then you pretended I didn't exist. We never meant to exclude you, she barked. We just thought it would be easier. Less tension. And then you made it worse. She added. You told people I was unstable. You destroyed my credibility. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Then Ryan spoke. Mom, he said quietly, but firmly, you did exclude her. You told everyone she wasn't coming. You let her pay for everything. That was wrong. Margaret turned to him, eyes blazing. Oh, don't you start too. No, Ryan interrupted, holding his ground. You crossed the line. You always cross the line when you feel cornered. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We should have handled it differently, he said, barely above a whisper. Mom narrowed her eyes at him. What does that mean? He hesitated, then said, maybe she has a point. Silence. The kind that drapes over a room like a blanket no one wants to lift. But I wasn't done. You didn't just leave me out. I said, voice steady. You tried to discredit me. You called people. You said I was unstable. You tried to make sure no one would listen to me. Why, Mom? Then, she said it, not with fury, not with confidence, but with something that almost sounded like realization. Because I was embarrassed. The room froze. She blinked, like she hadn't realized the truth until it tumbled out of her own mouth. I didn't know what to say when people asked where you were. It snowballed. I didn't want to be the villain. I stared at her, hollow. So, you made me the villain, I said quietly. She didn't deny it. And then, for the first time in my life, I saw my father look at her like he didn't recognize the woman beside him. Danielle, who'd stayed quiet, muttered under her breath. Wow. And just like that, the mask cracked. The manipulation, the blame, the need for control, all of it laid bare. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding but my spine straight. I'm done, I said, calm but firm. I don't need an apology, because I don't think you're capable of giving a real one. But I need you to understand. I'm done. Margaret flinched, actually flinched. Wait, no, you don't get to walk away like that. She snapped. You did this. No, I replied. You shut me out. And when people noticed, you rewrote the story. You made me the problem, because you couldn't handle the truth. She opened her mouth, but no words came. I turned to Dad. I appreciate that you tried to speak up. But you let it happen. That hurt, too. He looked down at his hands. I turned to my siblings. Danielle blinked back tears. I should have said something sooner, she whispered. Ryan nodded beside her. Me too. It didn't erase what had happened. But it mattered. And for the first time, I felt something that had been absent from our family for years. Truth. Even if it came through broken voices and uncomfortable silences, it was truth. In the weeks that followed, I created distance. Mom sent shallow texts. Can we move past this? I left them on read. Aunt Linda checked in regularly. Her support never wavered. Grandma Helen mailed me a handwritten letter, full of warmth and pride. You stood up for yourself, my dear, and it's about time someone did. But the real surprise came from Ryan. One evening in late January, he texted, "Want to grab coffee?" We met at a quiet cafe in West Asheville. The air outside was still sharp with winter. But inside, the warmth between us was real. We talked for almost 3 hours. I think I spent so long trying to keep the peace, he said, that I didn't realize how much damage she was doing. Yeah, I said, I get it. And I did. In that moment, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. The day after coffee with Ryan, I walked into my apartment and took a deep breath that felt different. Lighter, like something I'd carried for decades had finally been set down. I hadn't realized until then how long I'd been bracing for impact. Every family gathering, every group text, every unexpected phone call. My body had been in a state of quiet defense since I was a teenager. That night, I lit a candle, curled up under my favorite blanket, and opened my journal, something I'd abandoned years ago in the thick of life. And I wrote, "This year, I finally chose myself." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't retaliation. It was reclamation. I was taking back the narrative. The energy, the peace I had unknowingly handed away piece by piece. Over the next few weeks, life began to shift. My phone wasn't constantly buzzing with requests or passive-aggressive guilt trips. The absence of obligation created a strange, open space. At first, It felt like loneliness. But slowly, I began to realize, it was peace. Aunt Linda invited me to brunch one Sunday. We sat on a sunlit patio, drinking coffee and splitting a lemon scone. "I'm proud of you, Claire," she said suddenly, her voice serious. Most people never say the hard things out loud. Especially to family. I looked down, swirling the foam in my cup. I didn't know if I could. I admitted, I was terrified, but staying quiet felt like slow erosion. Like I was disappearing. "You were disappearing," she said gently, "and now you're not." Her words sank into me like warmth after a long winter. One afternoon, I received a letter from Grandma Helen. Handwritten, on thick cream paper, her cursive dancing across the page. "Sweetheart, family doesn't always look the way we're taught it should. Sometimes, the family we build, through honesty, mutual respect, and earned love, is stronger than any blood tie. I want you to know how deeply proud I am of you. You did something most never dare. You stood up to the myth. And you didn't flinch." I read that letter at least 3 times. Then I tucked it into the drawer of my nightstand, not because I wanted to hide it, but because it felt like something sacred. Meanwhile, my mom kept up her attempts to reset the story. Text messages continued to arrive. Carefully worded but empty. "Hope you're doing well. Let's catch up soon. Your father misses you." Each one read like a headline with no article beneath it. I didn't respond. Then came the group messages. Photos from Sunday dinners I wasn't invited to. Pictures of birthday cakes, baby showers, new cars, life rolling on. Curated and cropped. Once, she sent a family photo, one I clearly wasn't in, with the caption, "Love this crew. Nothing like family." That one stung. Not because I wanted to be in the picture, but because it was a declaration of control. "See? Everything is fine without you." But I'd already stopped trying to belong to a space that only welcomed me when I was useful. One cold February morning, I received a voicemail from my sister, Danielle. Her voice sounded unsure. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For being quiet. For letting things happen around you and not speaking up. I always knew it wasn't fair. I just didn't want to be the next one they shut out. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know I see it now. I see you now." I didn't respond right away. I let it sit, but something in me softened. She had finally stepped outside the script, even if it was late. I started therapy again. For years, I had treated it like a seasonal flu, something I only dealt with when it got bad. But now, I wanted to dig deeper. Not just to heal the recent wounds, but to understand the blueprint I'd been handed as a child. In one session, my therapist asked, "What role did you play in your family growing up?" I laughed bitterly. "The fixer, the buffer, the emotional garbage disposal." She smiled gently. "And who gave you that role?" The question hit me harder than I expected. It had always felt like my identity, not a role, but me. But for the first time, I realized I had been assigned that role. I was expected to be the adult before I'd even finished being a child. Expected to handle emotional chaos, smooth over conflicts, and ask for nothing in return. No wonder I was tired. No wonder I was angry. And no wonder reclaiming myself felt like both grieving and awakening. Spring arrived slowly in Asheville. The first daffodils poked up near the park trails. And the air lost its bite. I spent more time outdoors. More time writing. More time in stillness. One Sunday, I hiked up to Craggy Gardens, a spot I hadn't visited since college. At the top, I sat on a rock, staring out over the Blue Ridge Mountains. For the first time in months, I let myself cry, not out of sadness, but release. All the years of being unchosen. The years of trying to earn love that should have been freely given. The years of shrinking so others could feel more comfortable. I cried for the version of me who tried so hard. And I whispered, "You can rest now." In April, Ryan invited me to his birthday dinner. A small thing. Just a few friends at a local brewpub. "Danielle might come too," he said, a little nervously. I paused. "That's okay," I replied. "I'm not mad anymore. Just done with pretending." The dinner was surprisingly warm. No pressure. No tension. Danielle and I talked, not about mom, but about music, work, Life. Real things. Honest things. She didn't push for forgiveness. She didn't beg for closeness. And maybe that's why I finally felt ready to meet her halfway. And as for Margaret, I never cut her off completely. But I stopped letting her in fully. 2. When she sent polite check-ins, I replied with polite distance. When she invited me to a family cookout, I declined, not with malice, but with boundaries. Thanks for the invite, but I'll be taking that weekend to rest. I didn't owe her an excuse. I didn't owe her an emotional performance. I owed myself peace. One afternoon in late May, I received an email from a distant cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey Claire, just wanted to say, I heard a bit about what happened, and I think it's amazing that you stood your ground. It's helped me rethink some things in my own life. Sometimes the person they label as difficult is actually the one telling the truth. I read it 3 times. Then I smiled. Because that was it, wasn't it? The cost of telling the truth in a family built on appearances is high. But so is the cost of staying silent. And I was done paying with my sanity, my health, and my heart. If you've ever been the scapegoat in your family, the one who causes drama by simply setting boundaries, I hope you know, you're not broken. You're not too much. You're just unwilling to play a role that never fit you. And that's not betrayal, that's bravery. Summer rolled into Asheville like a slow exhale. The trees were lush, trails were busy again, and the weight I'd been carrying, the emotional backpack of obligation, guilt, and silence, finally felt lighter. Not gone entirely, but manageable. One Saturday morning, I sat by the French Broad River with a notebook in my lap. It had been nearly 6 months since the Thanksgiving that changed everything. And as I watched the water move, calm, steady, unhurried, I realized something. I had always thought healing would feel like fireworks. Something loud, victorious. But instead, it felt like a quiet return to myself. People assume healing means resolution. That the person who hurt you will apologize. That things will go back to how they were, only better. But that's not how it works. Sometimes healing means accepting that an apology may never come. That the people who hurt you will keep telling their version of the story. That you may be the villain in their tale forever, and that's okay. Because the truth doesn't need to shout to be real. It doesn't need to be accepted to matter. It just needs to be known, by you. And once I accepted that, I stopped chasing closure from people who never offered me peace in the first place. My mother, Margaret, never really apologized. Not sincerely, not fully. She never sat down and looked me in the eye and said, I was wrong. Instead, she continued to send messages that felt like placeholders, surface-level reach-outs meant to reset the script. It's been a while. Let's get coffee? Family's planning a weekend at the lake. You're welcome to come. Miss seeing you around. They weren't cruel, just hollow. And hollow is its own kind of hurt. But I didn't engage. Not because I was punishing her, but because I no longer needed her validation to know my worth. Instead of family barbecues and guilt-tripped dinners, I started building something else. A chosen family. People who celebrated my growth. Not feared it. People who didn't ask me to dim myself to make them comfortable. Brunches with Aunt Linda. Weekly calls with Grandma Helen. Cafe meetups with Ryan. Now a real relationship. Not just a shared bloodline. And then, something surprising. Danielle invited me to a small art show downtown. I almost said no. But curiosity, and hope, got the better of me. She met me at the door with a small smile and hugged me tightly. Thanks for coming, she whispered. It means more than you know. We walked through the gallery. No drama, no masks. Just 2 women, no longer bound by childhood rivalry. Trying to figure out what sisterhood could look like now, if it could exist at all. One evening, after a slow walk home, I sat down and opened the family group chat. I hadn't touched it in months. The last message from Margaret was a picture of a pie with the caption, "My famous strawberry rhubarb is back. Smile." I stared at it for a while. Then I clicked away, and created a new group chat. I named it Real Roots. I added Aunt Linda, then Grandma Helen, then Ryan. After a moment of hesitation, I added Danielle. This space is for support, not performance. I wrote. No pressure, no roles, just honesty, just love. One by one, the replies came in. Finally, Aunt Linda. Count me in. Ryan. About time. Grandma Helen. I'd like that. Danielle. I stared at my phone, blinking back unexpected tears. Because for the first time, this felt like family. Not perfect, not pain-free, but real. I've been asked, do you forgive your mother? And the truth is, I don't know. Maybe not yet. Maybe never fully. But I've released her. Released the need for her to see me, to understand me, to validate me. I've stopped trying to earn something that was never mine to hold. And that release? That's what freedom feels like. If you've ever been the scapegoat in your family, if you've ever been the one who sees the dysfunction while everyone else clings to the illusion, if you've ever been told, that never happened, you're too sensitive, you're just making drama, you are not crazy, you are not too much, you are not the problem, you are the one who finally said, no more. And that is the bravest kind of love, love for yourself. I won't pretend it's easy. Some nights, I still feel that ache, that longing to be understood, to be chosen without conditions, to have a mom who says, I'm sorry, I was wrong, let's rebuild. But I don't wait for that anymore. Because I am already building new roots, new stories, new peace. If you're watching this and nodding along, if something in your chest feels cracked open because this is your story too, then I want you to know, you are not alone. You are not broken, and you do not need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your peace matters, your truth matters, and you are allowed to choose yourself, even if no one else ever does. Especially if no one else ever does. Next Thanksgiving, there will be an empty chair at my parents' table. But that won't be my shame. That will be my peace. Because I am no longer hungry for a kind of love that only exists in performance. I'm feasting on something new now. Wholeness, truth, and the kind of family that doesn't need lies to stay together. If this story touched something in you, I invite you to share your own. Drop a comment. Let your voice be heard. Because your story matters. And somewhere, someone else needs to hear it to feel less alone. Subscribe if you want more stories about healing, truth, and choosing peace. Claire Bennett's journey may be wrapping up, but yours might be just beginning.